Josh, in response to your video about stocks, in particular the S&P 500 being a far better investment than real estate, you gave your examples of Bangor, Maine and Greenville, South Carolina, single-family homes over time, where the appreciation was just at inflation or just barely over inflation. So those examples, I think, are apples and bananas, not close at all. If you're going to have a fair comparison to the S&P 500, you'd pick A location and A-class properties that would be comparable to the 500 biggest and best companies in the US. So you'd be selecting for great investments like the fastest growing locations where land is limited, where job growth and population growth is very substantial. And yeah, you could argue that Greenville, South Carolina had that, but it's still a city in the southeast with plenty of land to build in all directions, unlike other places where land is constrained. Coastal California has been a historic example of that. So also, which didn't really touch on is how much you can use leverage in real estate, which is typically done. Also, the real value is in the dirt, not in the improvement, though the improvement can bring you income. The improvement on the property does not bring appreciation. It's the dirt that appreciates. So I'd say that a lot of real estate investors can beat the S&P 500 as proven by the Forbes 500. You can look, or Forbes 400, you could look at multiple billionaires who have grown substantial worth through real estate, primarily running it as a business. That's fair, not just a passive investment, but none of those companies on the S&P 500 is passive. Yeah, you can buy it, but you're paying management. Every one of those companies is managed, and it costs a lot to manage those companies. Real estate can be the same thing. You can pay managers to manage it. And also, if you primarily buy land for appreciation, the management can be very passive. Just one example. I can give you numerous from my own personal experience, my own personal portfolio. 3 years ago, 2017, I bought a piece of property, 38 acres in Greenville, Texas. $165,000 for 38 acres. It was probably mispriced, but that's what we do. We look for value, don't we? This year, I sold off 8 acres in 4 lots, and just to do the math real quick on that, $180,000. So I got back my original purchase price in full. I have 30 acres left. Tax appraisal this year came in at $532,000. I've already got my original investment back, so I have no money in that property at this point. Actually, a little bit, because I did some slight improvements. And 532, I called the appraiser, the county appraiser, talk about how they got to that value. They put me on the line with the chief appraiser, and he talked about comps, and I didn't argue with him. I just asked, tell me about these comps. I said, okay, yeah, it's a real number. And what I can do at this point is subdivide that 30 acres and accelerate the value even more. Just a single example. And I haven't even talked about leverage in that property. What if I did use leverage in that property? The land bank local land bank will happily give me 80% financing on a piece of property like that. Oh, and in the meantime, I put cattle on it. I cut hay on it. I get the ag tax exemption. I'm paying hardly any property tax on that. I'm selling hay off of it. I'm getting boarding fees for cattle. So it's not costing me anything to own and hold in the meantime. Just a single example, and I could give you a half dozen more from my own experience, my own portfolio over the last 10 years or so that are just as good as that one. So stocks, Real estate, yeah, it's easy to own the S&P 500. It's not much harder at all to be a little bit active and get some outstanding returns. And I'm confident that my net worth is more today with a real estate focus than it would be if I had been S&P 500 my entire adult life.